She didn't have to say anything. A single slow, piercing eye roll from Janelle said it all. In that one quiet moment, the veneer cracked, and this time, it was filmed. For years, she acted the calm, composed one. The steady presence in the shadows. The silent backbone of a dysfunctional family dynamic. But when Cody spoke up with another excuse at what was to have been a reconciliatory family meeting, her patience at last broke, and what she did next. Nobody was prepared. Hi friends, I'm Sala, and welcome to the channel. If you've been here from the start of Sister Wives, then you already know this family's problems didn't crop up overnight. Those were slow burns, glimmers of tension behind smiles and scripted scenes. And occasionally, someone drops the charade, not with shouting and scandal, but with one gesture that speaks louder than any argument. That's what happened with Janelle. And believe me, that eye roll was just the first in a whole series. Before we get into what happened next and why viewers still haven't moved on, make sure you click that subscribe button. This isn't a place for sanitized PR accounts. Here, we dive into the emotional reality, the messy, raw, human aspect of what actually went down off camera. And while you're here, leave a comment. When did you begin to suspect that this wasn't the idyllic family they presented themselves as? Because today we're venturing far beyond that moment in the meeting. We're going back into the years of silence, the betrayals, the shifting allegiances that brought Janelle to where she was. This is not drama for the sake of drama. It's about a woman who remained silent, watched it all play out, and ultimately made a choice that left even Cody speechless. And when you know what she witnessed and went through, that little eye roll won't be quite so little anymore. Outside, Cody always portrayed himself as the great equalizer. One guy for wives, even-handed love for all. That was the illusion. Reality worked differently. The cracks started showing well before cameras were around to catch them, and one of the saddest early warnings was during Christina's pregnancy. She required help, emotional, physical, whatever. Instead, she received abandonment. While she was pregnant with their child, Cody's attention wandered elsewhere. And it wasn't covert. He was pursuing Robin and not behind the scenes. All of the energy, charm, and availability he used to divide between three families was now devoted nearly exclusively to one woman. Christine, on the other hand, had to make do with being pregnant by herself, feeling isolated. She has since said it wasn't just difficult, it was like losing a best friend. Not melodramatic. Just sincere. Agonizingly sincere. And then there's Meri. Well, before the catfishing drama and IVF tragedy, the gap between her and Cody had already started opening up. She was a rule follower, stayed faithful, did what was supposed to be done. And Cody pulled away. He pulled back affection, then complained she was being distant. It was whiplash in the head. Meri had even made a cryptic suggestion that even discussing with the other wives how much pain this caused her made her feel unsafe. And why would it? Robin was fast becoming the emotional hub of Cody's life. Robin wasn't fighting for attention, she just received it. From the moment she took that first step into the family, she was treated like royalty. Cody smiled at her in a way he no longer did for the others. While Christine had her baby in seclusion and Meri fought in silence, Robin had secret chats, midnight phone calls, and an intimate emotional bond no longer available to anyone else. The favoritism wasn't discreet. It was boisterous. It was obvious. And it ached. And as all this happened, Janelle observed. She didn't argue. She didn't rage. She watched. Her expression, her stance, the way she stood, it all said more than words ever could. She saw what was going on. She sensed the disparity. Her silence was not agreement. It was planning. As Christine finally stood up and Meri held on to hope, Janelle was strategizing, spinning, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Christine was the first to finally say it out loud. On tape. She identified what everyone else was too afraid to acknowledge. This wasn't a just, kind marriage. She shed the facade and let reality pour out. Not with drama, but with genuine emotion. Her hurt wasn't staged. It was authentic. And in that instance, The facade of togetherness started to disintegrate. But Janelle? She didn't have to say anything until she did. And when she did, it wasn't by yelling or accusation. It was that one eye roll. A signal that she, too, was finished playing along. That she had lost her patience. That the woman who never took a side had finally taken one. And once you grasp the significance of that moment, you'll see it wasn't just an eye roll. It was a quiet revolution. Even prior to the cameras witnessing the entire disintegration of the family, Christine had already started telling truths that others wouldn't dare utter. While the other wives tiptoed around Cody's persona, choosing their words carefully to prevent confrontation, Christine broke ranks. She didn't hide her anguish. She didn't sugarcoat her truth. When Robin came into the picture, Christine was straightforward. She felt abandoned. She hadn't even met Robin until weeks later than the rest of the family. That was more than a scheduling mistake. That was exclusion. And she was very hurt. Her apology wasn't theatrics, it was honest. She spoke of feeling like she lost her best friend, and you could tell it wasn't just anger. It was sadness. Christine was not mad for TV. She was grieving a relationship that had once been like a partnership. And as Robin more and more became the focus of Cody's energy, getting more time, more attention, more presence, Christine didn't feign otherwise. Her vulnerability in those early episodes resonated with audiences. She spoke for the quiet heartbreak that everyone had suspected but no one had established. And then, she began to recede. Not completely, but noticeably. Perhaps it was Cody's pressure. Perhaps it was sheer fatigue. Or perhaps she came to understand that her words were accomplishing nothing. That spark, the one that caused her to speak out, flickered. She grew more reserved, more withdrawn. But those initial truths did not disappear. They remained with viewers. They sowed a seed of uncertainty. Because around the moment Robin arrived, the whole dynamic changed subtly and quietly, and Christine was the first to notice. As Meri held on to hope and Janelle sat on the sidelines, Christine revealed the favoritism. She perceived the emotional abandonment. And even when she soft-pedaled, she had already broken the illusion. Then, the pandemic struck, and with it, the ideal moment for the Brown family to demonstrate real unity. But instead of bonding, it broke at light speed. Cody rolled out a strict list of COVID protocols: no travel, no socializing, no exceptions. Well, almost none. Because at Robin's place, the rules didn't quite apply with the same fervor. While Christine and Janelle were instructed that their houses were too unsafe to have them over, Robin's had a nanny traipsing in and out on a regular basis. It wasn't rumor, it was said on camera. And Christine, after months of struggling to be a rule follower, finally snapped. Her anger distilled into 4 plain words: "What does the nanny do?" And with that, social media ignited. Because in that instant, the veil came down. Cody's rules were never about safety. They were about control. And they weren't fair. Christine and Janelle were forced to make a decision: see their children or see their husband. But Robin? She didn't have a decision to make. She got both. And that's when something shifted inside of Janelle as well. Always the no-nonsense, practical one, she had remained silent for far too long. But Cody's ultimatums, lockdown or nothing at all, rankled. Her sons worked, attended school, lived. And she wasn't going to let Cody micromanage them all in the cause of family safety, when it was obvious the rules only applied in some families. Her resistance wasn't over the top. But it was adamant. Janelle had come to her limit, and there was no turning back. At the same time, a tense unease hung over Robin's children, particularly her older daughters. Their emotional reactions on camera always seemed like they were slightly behind the moment, inflated reactions to minor things, palpable worry, guarded looks. It was noticed by viewers, particularly compared to Christine and Janelle's children, who seemed more expressive, more stable, more relaxed. Something wasn't right. Robin, meanwhile, frequently asserted that she couldn't possibly see why the other wives felt left behind. She maintained she didn't notice the split. But her ignorance sounded phony. She noticed what was occurring. She observed the rift expanding. She observed the favoritism unfold before her eyes. And she remained silent. She permitted the nanny to continue dropping by. She permitted the double standards to simmer. And throughout, Cody stood stubbornly at her side. And then there's Meri, whose tale is quite possibly the saddest of them all. She clung longer than anyone, hoping against hope even as Cody had long since moved on emotionally. Recall the plotline in which Meri was still discussing having another child? That wasn't about expanding the family. That was about grasping at something, anything on the off chance it would bring her and Cody back to what they had. They used to have. But Cody? He had checked out already. Not only from the possibility of having another baby, but from the relationship altogether. When he finally acknowledged that he had no plans on ever being intimate with Meri again, it wasn't soft. It was final. Cold. And it broke something in her. He didn't provide comfort, explanation, or kindness. Just a blunt truth that felt more like a shove than a conversation. Meri sat there, still hoping, still waiting for a door that had already been slammed shut. And then came the moment that felt like a gut punch for fans everywhere. The melting down of Meri's wedding ring. It wasn't just symbolic. It was devastating. Almost like Cody was saying, this doesn't mean anything anymore. And I'm not even going to pretend it does. What made it worse was how it was framed as some kind of honest closure. But to the audience, it didn't feel like healing. It felt like humiliation. Not just a breakup, but a public dismissal of Meri's worth, right in front of millions. That's been Cody's pattern. Whenever the women show emotion, they're too sensitive. If they question him, they're being hard to please. He flips the script again and again, positioning himself as the victim in all this, withholding love, respect, and attention. And throughout it all, Janelle watched. She didn't cry on camera like Meri. She didn't fight like Christine. But you could see the change. The colder tone. The reserved withdrawal. The woman who had made every attempt to maintain harmony was gradually, intentionally withdrawing. Janelle began focusing her energy elsewhere, on her children, on her independence. The more Cody pushed the other women away, the more Janelle checked out emotionally. You could see it in family meetings. Her eyes did all the work, the disappointment, the calculation, the exhaustion. And at some point, she realized something. Chasing Cody's approval was a losing game. And she was not going to play it. Not like Meri. Not anymore. Then came the day that turned everything upside down, not only for Christine, but for Janelle as well. Christina's exit wasn't some boiling over tantrum. It wasn't a showy storm out. It was the culmination of years of pain in silence, eroded incrementally. And those who watched closely had seen it coming. Christine had long since left the marriage emotionally before the movers came. But this wasn't an impulsive choice. She had planned her move. She was taking charge of her money. She got her own apartment. And, perhaps most profoundly, she leaned on the advice of her mother, someone who had escaped polygamy ahead of her. Christine finally chose herself. And in doing so, she unwittingly gave Janelle permission to do the same. Because Janelle had always been the peacekeeper. The voice of reason. The stabilizing force. But when Christine went away, something in Janelle started to change. She began questioning things not only about her relationship with Cody, but her future, her stability, her money. For the first time, she ceased trusting his side of the story without question. She began peeling back the curtain, recognizing how much of her life had revolved around a man who now seemed more like a houseguest than a partner. She said it on tape. Cautiously, but definitively. She acknowledged she lacked access to certain resources. That her freedom tasted vulnerable. That her decades of faithfulness hadn't earned her safety. And rather than dismissing those sentiments, she leaned into them. Janelle permitted herself to experience the same disappointment Meri had suppressed, the same pain Christine articulated. But the twist? Janelle didn't wait for Cody to see sense. She didn't beg. She didn't rant. She just started choosing herself, quietly, steadily, powerfully. Whether it was becoming a life nearer to her children or fighting her corner in peaceful but unbreakable means, Janelle's change happened quietly but forcefully. And, let's be real, it caught almost everyone off guard. She had always appeared the most dedicated to the principle of plural marriage. The reliable one. The faithful one. But then she changed. Slowly. And then irrevocably. The woman who had upheld the framework began questioning its very foundations. And it all came to a head in one eye roll. Easy. Unobtrusive. Quiet. But with meaning bursting from every pore. When Janelle rolled her eyes away from Cody on camera, it was not annoyance alone. It was everything. It was tiredness. It was simplicity. It was a woman seeing at last the truth she had dismissed for too long. No screaming. No drama. Just a look, a glance that spoke 1,000 words. For years, she was the rock, the emotionally detached wife who didn't require much. But Harry's the reality. She did require more. She just never received it. And then she watched Christine depart, not in anger, but in serenity. That was the moment Janelle ceased waiting. That spark did not emerge overnight. It seethed. Silently. Until it transformed into something concrete. Something immovable. Strength. Because what we were seeing wasn't a family, it was a system. A hierarchy. Cody on top. Robin in the center of attention, and the other women relegated to trying to balance devotion with silence and love with loneliness. The favoritism? It wasn't a theory. It was in your face. The emotional neglect? It wasn't a phase. It was standard. And the harm? It unfolded week by week, right before our eyes. But Janelle's story teaches us something. Quiet strength isn't weakness. It's restraint. It's wisdom. It's the kind of strength that waits, watches, and then walks away, not with drama, but with dignity. That eye roll wasn't a reaction. It was a woman speaking up for herself, in the only language Cody had no control over. So now I want to know from you, when did your illusion shatter? Was it the COVID regulations Cody enforced, but didn't abide by? Was it when Christine slipped away quietly and left? Or was it seeing Meri cling to hope long after there was no more love to be found? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I read each and every one, and I want to know what you thought you were witnessing. And if you're here for authentic, unvarnished stories about the families we believed we knew, click that subscribe button. There's more to reveal. More tales to share. More truths that need to be viewed for what they actually are. Imsala. Thanks for joining me for this time. And I'll catch you in the next one, where we continue to unwrap the layers, one truth at a time.